Frontline with Kortney Kenny, and I'm Tom Parisi, and today we got a great set of guests. Another fantastic episode of the Frontline podcast. I'm Tom Parisi, joined by Kortney Kenny. We are pleased to be joined for the second time is coach of your North Bay Battalion, Ryan Oulahen. And Ryan, I know you're joining us with the best backdrop we've seen since Kortney's giant big screen TV. So hooray for technology. But I mean, we are so close to training camp and we're so close to everything. What's the feeling like around the coaching staff and the rest of everybody? Just, you guys got to be amped.
Well, I think it's just what you say. We can smell it. Like, you can smell it. We're so close to being right there with having our players back in town and back on the ice and doing what we know how to do, what we do best. And I think the feeling is, I mean, we're ready to go. I don't think there's ever going to be a time or a season where you're as prepared as we are now, because we've had, how long to really plan things out and get things going. So we're amped up. We're ready to go. I'm kind of spending the day myself here in a rink and just being around it, smelling the cold air and the fresh air. Hopefully my energy comes through the screen here, because I think we're ready to rock.
How nice is it going to be to have a full season with the team under your belt now?
Yeah. And kind of in stages too, right? It's we're really looking forward to having a training camp first off, to get all of our prospects and draftees that we've had over the last couple seasons that we really haven't had a chance to have some in-person time with. So that, we call it the double cohort is kind of coming in. We got a lot of new faces. So that's going to be, the real fun part is being around that again.
As someone who eats, sleeps, and breathes hockey, presumably, a couple of weeks ago, I went to the Voodoo's orientation camp here in North Bay, and it was just great getting back in the rink. You alluded to being back in the rink here a little bit. What's it like for you, someone who's, been around the game their whole life?
It feels normal. I think that's the best way to put it. It just does. It's you don't realize us, I don't want to say just everybody, but I think when you grow up in the game, when you grow up in sports, it's not just hockey. I think it's all sports. And I think that's what's so good about getting your kids and busy and involved is structure. And when you have that, like your entire life, and sports does that for you, when that gets taken away from you, I mean, you really miss it. And so now to have that structure, to have that routine, to have all those things in place, it's at ease. We've been kind of joking around as a staff, because we've been in the last few weeks. It's, you go home at night and it's nice and easy because we just got in, we accomplished things. We got that structure is now in place. And I really think our players are going to feel that too, when they get back in town and that structure, and it's just going to feel normal.
You had mentioned earlier, you guys could not be more prepared. Is there anything else you guys can do to be prepared, or is it just all, let's go through the motions at this point?
Well, no, I guess there's a lot of things that we can do to prepare our players, and that's going to kind of transpond, starting next week. We're going to start doing a little bit more stuff with our players, getting them prepared, using technology to our advantage. So things that we've never done in the past, it's, maybe we can send some things out, and we will, to prepare our players for training camp, expectations, things we want to see, not just from a logistics standpoint, but even from systems and identity. And we got to get that going as quick as we can. So we're going to start, implanting that. But also one thing I have learned as a coach is you can be super, super prepared and have like your 3 weeks totally dialed in, exactly what you're going to do every single day, every minute of that day. And then all of a sudden you get through the first day and you rip up all those plans going into day two, because you just don't know where you're going to be in day two. You don't know what our players are really going to maybe need an extra little bit of time with, so the case. So we're prepared, but we also have it in the back of our head that, we need to be flexible too.
Being prepared is one thing, but as somebody who's kind of worked for this, and of course you've done it before in Flint, but going into your actual first training camp with the battalion, a team that you've mentioned you bleed green for, how excited and maybe even nerve-wracking is that for you?
No, again, it's the nerves go away once you can start, actually putting almost pen to paper, sort of like that's the analogy, but we can actually start working and going through things. That's when the anxiety and the nerves and all those feelings kind of go away. So again, looking forward to the players being here. Once we get on the ice, I mean, then we just start working day to day and it becomes very natural. And probably my experiences too in the past here, it's really paying dividends. It's, I know what I want to accomplish early, and I also know where to be patient because those things will naturally take care of themselves.
How important is it to maybe, or even how prepared are you with dealing with two separate classes of rookies coming in? I know one of them's a year older than the other one, but they're still fresh into the league. How is that being handled?
Well, again, like I said, it's typically when you come in, I mean, 75% of your team are accustomed to your drills, are accustomed to your systems of play, are accustomed to all that. So, you have a lot of guys that can lead the front of the line, and the new group of maybe 5-6 players of new players come in and they can follow, where now it's, 50-50 almost, or I don't know what the exact numbers are. So that's why we've done such a big job here of trying to get our players prepared and gone over a lot of the systems with our new players and all those things. So, we want everybody kind of on the same line, the same starting line when we start training camp. So that's kind of how we've tackled the double cohort, because certainly that's been something that we've talked about.
When it comes to camp and of course being inter-squad games and stuff, are you going to be on the bench, or are you going to let your assistants run the bench? You're going to be an eye in the sky type of guy?
Well, I think probably a little bit of both, Kortney. I think it's important. Again, we talk about what's normal and the feel. So for me, the feel and the normalcy is being on the bench, being at ice level. I could get a feel there, but also being up top, because then you really can see a general landscape of everybody, and you can really see the picture. So I like to do both. I certainly want to, be starting to coach right away. And I think that's going to be important for us, of everybody getting on the same page as fast as possible. Is I don't really want to waste too much time. So hopefully, I can jump on both benches and be intertwined with all that and really have a good feel with the players.
Has there been any talk between the coaching staff, management, heck, even Mr. Abbott, about leadership this year? Who gets what, or who? I know we're not going to talk about specific players, but I mean, have you guys leaned toward a decision yet?
No, for sure. I think, and that is such a group decision, and things that we've talked about. I think you're always talking about that, even, who could potentially be it next year or 2 years from now, or and when I say it, I don't mean just one player. I mean, the leadership group. So I think we're at a spot where, we certainly have an idea of what our leaders are going to look like. And then going into camp, really, we're going to do a lot of team building, a lot of exercises to see that stuff flourish even more, and then make those decisions and those announcements in due time.
One thing that's always kind of been different and peculiar about OHL training camps and the exhibition schedule and whatnot is a lot of teams, like, you'll be seeing some of your better players and whatnot go off to camps, how tough is that when you see, I mean, obviously you want to see them go and succeed, but having not the full group together type of thing for the whole kit and caboodle?
No, I think it's great. The way I look at it is, we can't quite replicate what a player is going to get in an NHL camp. So I don't really worry about those guys that are able to go, and whether it's an NHL rookie tournament or get to main camp, whatever the case may be, when they return to us, they're going to be ready. I know what all those camps take, and the things and the the experiences that they're going to go through. We wouldn't be able to replicate that in our training camp. So let's have as many guys as we can go away, because they're going to come back even more prepared. That's the way I look at it.
You yourself as a player going through that kind of stuff, how did you approach it yourself, going to those rookie camps and trying out for the big league club like that?
Well, same thing. I always felt that, early on, and quite frankly, that's probably the number one goal of what you're looking at. If you're a drafted player, if you're a free agent going to an NHL camp, I mean, that should be the number one goal, is to show well, maybe earn a contract, or if you're a drafted player, you get yourself recognized and try to move up the depth charts or earn a contract earlier than maybe you would. So I think for our guys, that should be the focus. And then when they come, return to us, they'll get amalgamated really quick, and we'll just get on the same page real fast.
What's your take on the import players, the defenseman Alexander Lukin, and how Matvei Petrov has progressed in the year and change he was selected? What are you expecting? And what have you seen, or what do you know?
Well, I got to work with Matvei quite a bit over the course of the year. And, even we just had a Zoom call with him the other day, and Adam was on, and even he couldn't believe the English and, the leaps and bounds he's made in the English department. So that was exciting for us. But, I think he's a guy, every time I talk to him, every time I do stuff with him, he's super, super energizing. He's a character. He's somebody that's going to add a little bit of flash to our forward group. And I mean, his skills are off the charts, the way he can shoot the puck and things that he can do. So I think he was a really good NHL draft where he went. And then with the defenseman, Alex, it's, a little bit more patience probably with him coming in as a defenseman and with the English barrier. But he has Matvei Petrov to sort of help him and guide him. So we've been able to do a few things already with him systems wise. And he seems to me like a real serious, somebody that wants to do well right away. And so we're, looking forward to having both those guys over in our lineup.
Was there any surprise that Matvei went in the 6th round? Did you think he'd go higher?
I mean, I'm biased only because he was the most hockey I watched throughout the pandemic. I watched every single game and was able to do one-on-one video with him and all that. So I know what he can bring and what he can do. So, like I said, I think the best way to put it is he was a really good draft at that point.
Okay, well, in that sense, then let's ask you about Joe. What were your thoughts of him going in the 7th round to Montreal?
Proud, real proud for Joe. You never know how something like that is going to go because he wasn't able to play last year. I think all of us Battalion fans and the ones that got to see him and what he did at the end of the season, before the pandemic hit, probably feel that, again, he was a steal where he went. So, a really good pick for Montreal. I think the pedigree and the way they do things there, he probably is a pretty good fit. Speaking with Joe, he's pumped. You're in an NHL draft, and now the expectations are raised and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's really going to help us.
It might be just me, my biased opinion, but I feel like the entire league is going to get shot out of a cannon in October. I feel like they're just going to come out. Everybody's going to be guns a-blazing because they're going to be so amped. You have the same feeling or anything different?
No, absolutely. I do feel that. And I'll even add to it as I think you're going to see, hopefully we have a couple of these guys, but also around the league, it's, certain guys are going to go off the hot start. So you're going to be like, where did that guy come from? Because again, the 19-year-olds in the league this year were 17 the last time we played, and most of them were first-year players. It's going to be the scouting early on from us as coaches, even, with our opponents. We're going to really have to relearn these players because, it's been a while since we've even seen our opponents.
Do you have to do the same thing with I know you keep tabs on your own players, but I mean, there's got to be some of them that have made giant leaps and bounds in the year and change.
No, absolutely. And, been able to when it permitted and zones opened up, we were able to do a little bit of traveling and see some guys in person. And then just, through our calls. And then we've been able to have some fitness test results over the summer of guys putting those in. And the numbers look good. I mean, guys are bigger, stronger, faster than they were a couple years ago. And now it's all about really looking forward to see them on the ice and seeing that improvement.
Well, I bring him up because he's one of the guys that actually told us. But when we had Wakely on the program, he said he put on a lot of weight and a lot of muscle since the draft. So even that, the 2020 draft class has changed leaps and bounds since you guys picked them. So it's going to be interesting to. I think it's safe to say there's never been a season start quite like this one, and we're not even to that point yet. So, but just as a guy who implements the structure and the head coach of the team, is it going to be off the hop? You're expecting, the structure and systems to be, perfect, or is there some leeway here where it's going to get some time to get the feet under them?
I think it's going to be our biggest challenge as, and again, not just our coaching staff. I think it's going to be the biggest challenge of just the hockey world with these players that weren't able to play structured 5-on-5 hockey. Even you look at some of the hockey that some guys were able to play last year, most of it didn't encounter regulation rules. And even if it was 5-on-5, it might not have been contact. If it was contact, it might have been 4-on-4 or different sets of rules. So that is for sure, I think, going to be our biggest. We're going to get it off right away, is getting everybody on the same page in terms of the structured 5-on-5 game again. I think, I wouldn't be shocked to see some high scoring games early on in the season and an exhibition. But then also, we're not the only coaching staff thinking the same thing. It's we know what we need to do to make sure that, the guys, we have a lot of time, get them on the same page and get them playing structured hockey.
That'll be a key to victory. Go ahead, Kortney.
100%. I wanted to ask you about this. They were the affiliate when you were here the first time around, and then things fell apart a little bit, but now the Powassan Voodoos are back as your, junior A affiliate. Just thoughts on how that all kind of came together and having prospects, 20 minutes down the road from you.
Yeah, I mean, all the credit for sure goes with Adam and the connection he's had with Jim Bruce and Chris Dawson and that whole, ownership group and management group with the Voodoos. And I think I really think it's a no-brainer. I think it's something that can benefit both sides. We help them, they help us. It's both ways with that one. And, I think having everybody kind of on the same page as well. And I was even, you talked about the Powassan Voodoo golf tournament. That was a chance for me to meet Mark Lafleur and spend a little bit of time with him and have some chats and conversations. And I think if you can just have everybody on the same page that way and things transpire like that, it can only help our situation.
What was your first impressions of head coach Mark Lafleur?
No, somebody that, he's going to be very detailed. He's going to ask a lot of his players in terms of the hard work department, which I love to hear. I think he's going to be very structured and disciplined, and he's going to be a great coach for that team. There's no question.
I met Mark once, and that night he was buying the whole table wings and some pops. So he's got grade A from me in my book so far. And you know what? I gotta say, congratulations on getting closest to the pin. It killed me on that hole at the Voodoos golf tournament. We thank you so much there, head coach of your North Bay Battalion, Ryan Oulahen. Thanks so much for joining the podcast today.
Well, thanks, guys. And as you know, I love what you guys do. I'm a big fan of the show, just like everyone else, and get to listen to the podcast too. And I can't thank you enough for what you've been doing, and keep up the good work.
Thanks. We can't thank our guests enough. They make the show.
Right.
We got to give a huge thank you, as always, to head coach of your battalion, Ryan Oulahen, for joining us on the Frontline podcast. He's always a treat, such positive energy, and I wish I was a player for him, to be honest with you. I'd love to just feel that energy behind the bench, and he's the kind of guy you just want to, you want him to be proud of you, and you want to work hard, and you want to make sure your team wins. So, hey, that's the kind of coach you got to have. Love it.
Would you run through a brick wall for Coach Ryan Oulahen?
I'd catch a grenade for him.
Oh, Bruno Mars over here. Perfect.
Anyhow, you and I, Kortney, were talking earlier in the day too about the new statement. We'll get over some battalion alumni news as well in just a little while. But this league coming out, and I got the statement pulled up right here, is they announcing effective October 7th, anybody who basically has anything to do with an OHL game, whether you're a fan, broadcaster, a camera guy, and everything in between, has to be fully vaccinated, which I think is, first of all, a great idea, but it's going to be interesting to see how they kind of police that. I'm wondering if they're going to have somebody at the door checking for proof, or will we have to bring papers into a game if we want to get in or anything like that? So I'm curious to see how it's going to shake out.
Yeah, me too. And I'm looking off camera right now because I have my vaccine record card right next to my computer, and I'm just thinking to myself, it's kind of big. I don't really want to be carrying it around with me everywhere, type of
It's a
thing.
weird
But
size. You're right.
it is. It is.
I got mine emailed to me too, which is nice, but
Yeah, so did I. But I just feel like having the physical copy is probably a good thing too, right? And I mean, I guess I could always photocopy it and fold it up on a piece of paper and bring it with me places too if I really wanted to.
exactly.
Um, it is it's a very touchy subject, like, because there are people that are very opposed to it. There are people that are very pro it. Um, I'm kind of in the middle. Like, I went and got it because I want to get this over with. I mean, all this stuff, but I can understand some people. I can understand some of the arguments why they don't want to get it, and I can understand the arguments as to why you should get it. And it's just going to be the new normal at this point, that you probably should, if you can, if you physically can, you probably should just go ahead and do it.
It feels like the seatbelts of life nowadays. It was a suggestion back in the day. Now it's a law, and it'd be not smart to go through to drive in your car without your seatbelt.
Yeah.
That's the way I look at it. You just wouldn't do it, and if you do, it's a big risk, not just to you but to others as well. So that's the way I look at it. I'm not trying to
Well,
be controversial or nothing. It's just I feel like it's the safest thing to do if you can physically get it.
I think too, when it comes to the league standpoint, is I think as of the date of this recording, we hit 600 new cases today.
Yeah,
Um, and the league itself doesn't want to have another situation where they have to sit out another year.
and
So I
it's
think
probably not going to get better as schools reopen
no,
and people start getting back from vacation. It gets colder outside. There's less places to congregate outdoors where the ventilation is plentiful.
yeah,
So it makes for a touchy subject, and it makes for I can't wait to see what'll happen. I'm actually a little bit curious to see. Like, I don't want to see someone get turned away at the gate.
hmm
Far from it, but I am curious to see how they go about it. And
yeah.
you know, are they gonna? I don't think they're gonna start dictating what vaccines you have. Probably just satisfies you got both, or you're fully vaccinated with whatever you've got. Again, it's gonna be. I don't have any like further insight into it. I'm just curious as sin how it's all going to shake down.
I feel like we're going to be in the same boat as everyone who lines up for that first inter squad game, during training camp. We're all going to be kind of in that same boat. I know personally, for one, I mean, I was going to go regardless
Yep.
uh, to these, camp and the as much games as I can this year, working in and around the team. But I know one person I talked to today about it. They said straight up, I'm a lot more comfortable going into the gardens knowing that everyone around me is going to have both shots.
It's true. I mean, you ask people. Like, I was at the hardware store the other day, and it just came up. Like, the cashiers or somebody was talking about it up at the checkout. And yeah, like, we were maybe five or six of us waiting there. We kind of all agreed. We're like, we just all happened to be fully vaccinated. And it was, it was nice to know there's people out there who take a precaution as much as you do. And again, I completely understand if there's physical limitations where you can't. It's a real thing. And to those people, you know, I hope it works out, and I hope they stay just as safe as you and I. But it'd be interesting to see what happens when they get to that door. And are they going to try? Are they going to, like, there's got to be some people who are going to try. It's got to be.
I think so too. And the other thing that might be, this is totally the greed side of things coming out, but it'll be interesting to see with some of these teams where they've gone a year and a half without making any money. Are they really going to want to turn away people?
Man,
Like, it's a tough subject in general.
at this point, it's like an OHL policy. And if you start breaking that, I mean, then it just opens the floodgates, because crowds of people tend to take, you give them an inch, they take a mile, right? So,
Well,
I
it's going to be
hope,
well, yeah.
I hope greed doesn't dictate it. I hope greed doesn't dictate it. I know there are
Yeah.
teams who have survived comfortably, and I say comfortably, probably nobody has been doing great, but I mean, there's teams that are better off than others. And I just hope, for the sake of safety, those teams don't let things slide or go by the wayside. That'd be very irresponsible, at least in my opinion, it would be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and that's, yeah, it's a tough argument, especially when you can only have 1,000 people in the rink as of right now. Hopefully by October 7th, things have improved to the point where they allow more people in. It's just a very touchy subject, and you kind of have to watch what you say. You have to kind of tread lightly what you say with these subjects, because again, I'm not saying, go get your vaccine or don't get your vaccine. It's entirely your choice. It's just, this is the world we live in now, where things are coming into place like this, where they want to make sure that everyone's as safe as possible when they're getting back into these environments like this.
And they don't want any kids, because let's face it, OHL rinks, every player is a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very popular place to take kids. It's for all walks of life, right? But I know it's just, you don't want to get anybody sick.
Well,
and you just want to keep it safe for everybody.
Exactly. And you've seen it yourself firsthand, that when the flu gets into a locker room, it just spreads like wildfire.
Oh, it's game over. I can tell you stories about the bus. These are ones that are safe to talk about. I know, and I'll admit, I've been on that bus sick.
Yep.
But at the same time, half the team was feeling the same effects. Like, everybody had their own box of Kleenex at their chair or at their seat, and you kind of just hunkered down. If you had to sneeze, bam, into that Kleenex or into your nose like you were a vampire. But a vampire wouldn't ruin its cloak.
No.
But it's happened. I mean, this was years ago, mind you. I think it's been 4 or 5 years since I've done anything like that.
Oh, geez, yeah, close to that.
But
it's kind of crazy to think about, isn't it?
It is. It's not going to be like that anymore, though.
No.
Like, could you imagine if I walked onto the team bus with a sniffle even? There would be one, get the hell off the bus. 2,
who's this guy? Get him out of here.
You can 2, drive there yourself.
Yeah.
If you know the way. It's actually not that hard to get around for the OHL rinks, but I mean, and then what do I do? Am I allowed to stay at the same hotel? Am I allowed to join them for team functions and team meals? Or do I got to quarantine myself? Am I even allowed to go?
Yeah.
Like, that's a real thing this year.
I think it's safe to say I've been told that media will not be on any buses as of right now.
And it doesn't shock me in the slightest.
No.
I know people are going to miss the road games and whatnot, however they're going to be broadcast this year. I don't think any team's ironed that out yet. Unless you drive to Sudbury. Driving to the Sioux is a 5.5 hour trek, and that's if the weather holds up.
Yeah.
So
Well, thankfully,
maybe it might just be the 34 home games this year.
I wouldn't be shocked if there was only home game coverage, and then you have to piggyback off away team.
Yeah.
Well, not away team, but Sudbury's home broadcast or whatever, such and such.
Yeah.
Thankfully, though, with the Sioux, like, all the games are over with in October.
Yeah, they get done pretty quick, which is nice.
I mean, knock on wood, that there's no, crazy storms or anything in October. Gales of November.
Well, I remember the first time we ever went to the Sioux, the bus broke down. Well, it was the first time I went.
That's right. Yes.
We couldn't get out of Espanola.
Yeah, and I bet you that was a stinky situation.
Well, that was my first road trip, and I remember I called Bob Coles, who I love so very, very much. He's one of the best humans I've ever run into.
Isn't he?
And I remember I called him because it was a nighttime game, but we left really early, which they often do for the Sioux, which is smart anyway. We left really early, and because if you've ever driven Espanola, you got to get off the highway, and it's a little ways in. It's not far. It's just a little ways in. And for whatever reason, and right after there's a big hill and passing lanes when you're heading west. And for whatever reason, the bus could not do over 50. Wouldn't do it. And I remember calling the bus driver. He was pooping bricks. And this coaching staff and players were very confused. And I remember I got on the phone with Bob and I was texting him frantically and calling him at the same time saying, oh no, we're going to be late because I'd never driven to the Sioux before. I had no idea how long it took.
Ironic.
I had no idea how to set up at the rink. And oh my God. Like what a time. We got there fine. For somehow the bus magically fixed itself. It's like from Miss Frizzle's class or something like that. And it fixed itself. But I mean, that was my first ever road trip was, is it going to go? We're going to even have a game tonight. That only happened once to me where I got delayed by an hour. And it was on the way to Niagara.
Yeah, there was an accident or something.
Yeah, there was an accident on the Burlington Skyway and we had to go around.
Yeah.
And the bus driver insisted we go through like the backwoods of Hamilton.
Nice.
It took an extra hour. We got there, but the game started at 8 instead of 7. But we made it. But it was interesting because all the fans were still like there and getting pretty testy. And I remember to get up to the rink in Niagara, you have to have key card access, like to get up to the broadcast booth. At least it did when I was there. You had to get access from an employee, which they do not have too many of. So basically the rule was if you got up there, you stayed up there. Because there's no guarantee to get back. Washrooms were on the same floor, thank goodness.
Okay. You're good.
It was always iffy if you were going to get all the way up. You could make it by yourself to the floor just beneath. But to get up there, because it was like special VIP, whatever the heck, you needed a key card. So that was lucky.
I was gonna say washrooms for you are a big thing. That was the hallmark of every road game. As soon as he hit the commercial to go to the intermission, okay, Kortney, you good? Okay, I'm going to the washroom. Bye.
Some of them are really close. Some of them are a mile. Hamilton's the worst. I think we talked about this early on in the podcast.
Yeah.
So you got to go all the way up to First Ontario Center in the rafters to go up to the broadcast booth. And there's at the edge of the rafters, like to gain access to them, there is a bathroom. It's tiny, but it is there. One day it was out of order. And now you have options. You either go to the concourse where the fans are, which could be, who knows how long your wait is. And you've only got like 12 or 15 minutes to do what you got to do. The only other option was go all the way 4 flights down on the dark and scary stairwell, because the elevator's slow as sin there.
I've heard, yeah.
To go down to the basement where we like, because to get into the arena with the bus, you're underground. To go down there, run around the rink, bathroom, run back, haul up 4 flights of stairs, 4 really long flights of stairs, across the boardwalk in a zigzag pattern, down another set of stairs, and then the second last door on the right-hand side into your tiny little booth with TVs that don't work.
Ridiculous.
So but Peterborough's right across the booth. It was fantastic.
Peterborough's the one that's the home team booth. Actually, you know what? North Bay's bathrooms aren't terribly far from their booth either. So
Peterborough's the only rink where I had, like, I'm not ashamed to say, stomach problems during a game.
Fair enough.
And during that was the most nerve-wracking scoreless second period of my life.
Why do you say that?
Because I had to go to the bathroom.
Okay. I was gonna say because of the play as well, or
no? Oh no, the play was just another game. But I remember it was down to the wire, and I was telling, I think it was Cody was on the other side. Cody Belanger, another solid human being. And I was like, "Can you guys comfortably call the game in case I don't make it back?"
But we did. Oh, there you go. I mean, that's all that matters. But I was gonna say when you said most uncomfortable scoreless nothing second period, I was gonna say no offense to the team, but you didn't cover many, big must-win games type of thing. So
nerve-wracking stomach-wise.
Yes. Although on your resume, you will always forever have the guy on the radio call for the longest battalion game in history until eventually that changes. Hopefully not too soon, because it's a cool record to have in your little back pocket.
It is pretty neat. That was pretty neat. And if you haven't heard that episode yet, go back in the archives and find it with
Nick King, Christian Prop.
It was a good time.
Yeah. Those guys are both, we're talking about solid human beings. There's two solid human beings there. Let's talk about another solid human being. One who was drafted, I believe it was for your second season with the team.
He was my first. That was the first ever draft pick I got to meet from the battalion.
That is true. Adam McMaster, Tom.
Yeah, 13th overall pick the year I got there, and he's now joining Luke Moncada with the Acadia Axemen in the university sports, which is fantastic. There's nothing wrong when a kid goes off and pursues education and hockey at the same time. Love it. Doesn't mean you're done with hockey forever. It just means you're taking advantage of the fact the OHL will help you with your schooling.
Yep.
And man, more power to him. I know he split time between Owen Sound and the battalion, but hey, good for him. He's going to hang out with a cool guy. He already knows Luke probably.
Yep.
So, he's got some familiar faces, and he'll probably do fantastic. He's a good hockey player.
I remember when I was with you, visiting you in the Sioux, and they were playing the Owen Sound Attack in the playoffs, and we went to the game. Of course, the Sioux were stacked that year. Villalta and Net and Frost and all the usual suspects, Barrett Hayton. But Adam McMaster, I remember sitting there and saying that to you. Owen Sound lost the game. I believe the Sioux won, but Adam McMaster looked to me like the best player out there.
Yeah, he really changed, I found. Like, he was still more of a pass-first kind of guy when he went out to Owen Sound as he was here in the Bay. But I feel like as you get older, you're more of a rounded player. You understand the game a little bit better. And I feel like he really matured in Owen Sound. Yeah, he didn't maybe put up the points people expected him to because he was a first-round pick and all. But sometimes it's not all about the points. You look at, hey, we were talking with Coach Oulahen. He didn't have to light up the scoreboard to be an impressive guy. He still did. Good hockey player. But, he was so much more than that, which is arguably more important sometimes. So, hey, good for him.
Well, and you know what? He was traded for a guy, and I'm sure he's got to be on the radar. We asked the leadership question to Coach Oullahen about it earlier. I'm sure he's on the radar of many as Mitch Russell. That was who Adam McMaster was traded for. And Mitch has turned himself into a heck of a hockey player as well in his time in North Bay. So that's kind of one of those trades that you can walk away from, where Owen Sound got what they wanted, North Bay got what they wanted. It was a win-win situation. And you got to wish Adam the best, because again, I remember when he came to North Bay, it was exciting times. He was a good player. He was fast. He wasn't the typical at that time North Bay draft pick. He was a tinier guy who had speed and could sneak in and out of things, like he'd go in the corner with a bunch of bigger guys and he'd come out of the corner with the puck type of thing. Like, he was just fun to watch. I like Adam a lot.
I remember in closing on him, one of my favorite goals he ever scored, and I got the privilege to call it, was a home game against the Kitchener Rangers. I think, I can't remember if it was 2-2 in overtime, but McMaster got the puck 3-on-3, and he went from end to end almost. And if I'm not mistaken, he did one nice between the leg deke on the Kitchener defenseman and backhand roof. Nice. And it was such a lovely, smooth goal. And you knew he had it in him. And I wish he scored a little bit more, but that was perfect to watch. It was such a satisfying goal. Loved it.
I remember going to Sudbury for it was the preseason the next year. Him and Co looked deadly. Like, Co was just drafted and everything, and it's a shame they didn't play with each other more often, because they both were kind of the same, not the same type of player, but they complemented each other really well. Or at least I thought both were speedy, and crafty with the puck. But you know what? Good for Adam. He's moving on with his pro career, and like Luke says in his episode, if you go back and listen to it a few episodes ago, he talks about, just because he's going to school, this isn't the end of his pursuit of pro hockey. So same thing, I'm sure, for Adam.
You can peruse Hockey DB, Elite Prospects, and everything else in between, and find a lot of guys who did university sports and went on to play pro, some even making it back to the NHL.
Yep.
No, so I see nothing but good things. Good for him. There's never a wrong thing when you go to school. I mean, I got a coworker who's quitting her job to go back to school, and she's nervous. I was like, no, you're doing the right thing. You're going back and doing what you love.
Absolutely. You can't ever fault someone for going back to school. Even if you're older, do it.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, absolutely
if you find something you love, you do what you got to do.
Yep. 100%.
This Sesame Street episode has been brought to you by the letter, let's say O for Oulahen. Another episode of the Frontline podcast wrapping up. We got to say thank you to our intrepid producer, as always, Ben Sargent. He makes us sound fantastic. We thank Coach Oulie for joining us and everybody else in between who always makes this broadcast and this show possible. If you're watching us on your TV, you can catch the full episodes on YouTube, and you can listen to us, the whole episodes, on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, and be sure to check in when the battalion do their social media. We're usually hunkering around somewhere deep in the alleys out back, piggybacking off their awesome success. He's Kortney Kenny. I'm Tom Parisi, and this was fun. We're going to do it again sometime.